Well, folks, here we are again for the weekly forecast. Before we get to the main forecast, let's take a look at this last week. And of course, we've seen the same routine. Cold front moving through the weekend, then a warm up during the middle of the week, before we see another cold front moving in late in the week and bring us some cooler conditions through the weekend. That's exactly how this week played out. We've seen the warmest temperatures Wednesday and Thursday on a statewide basis, although Tuesday we did see some warmer temperatures in western Nebraska. As the front moved through, we started to see some scattered thunderstorm activity with more concentrated precipitation as we moved through yesterday, and we're seeing the departing precipitation through the eastern Nebraska this morning, and we expect to see a fairly benign weather pattern for the next couple days with very cool conditions. Now, that's good news because we have been unusually warm over this last 3 months. Basically, the first half of the growing season, June into the mid-July period, the primary heat was focused on eastern Nebraska. The second portion of this equation was focused on western Nebraska. And when we track the heat or how the crops are developing, we look at what we call GDDs, growing degree day accumulations. We know the range of corn grows best between 50 and 86. So we take and accumulate those over a season, and we can pretty much determine where the crop is going to be. Now, the big debate this year is that the crop has been moving along at an unusually fast pace, and we're kind of seeing that and reflected in the GDD accumulations this year. When we compare the old methodology where we cap the lower and upper limits and compare it to one where we have a lower limit, but we do not cap the upper limit, meaning that if temperatures go above 86, we keep accumulating those temperatures in the GDD calculations, and we look at the differences, we see some unusual things. So if we go to the map, what we are going to notice is from June 1st, we are seeing with an unlimited cap on our upper maximum temperatures that the GDD accumulations are about 200 units higher across western Nebraska to about 100 units higher across extreme northeastern Nebraska. And we take this in terms of percent difference between an uncapped GDD accumulation and the capped GDD accumulation. What you'll notice in western Nebraska, we're running the GDDs about 10% higher than we would have under the old calculation from June 1st. And in eastern Nebraska, not quite there. We're running between 3% in northeast Nebraska to about 7% in southeast Nebraska. That is significant because that would translate into between 3 to 7 days in northeast Nebraska where the crop is ahead of schedule, and in southeast Nebraska we would be looking at about a week, and in western Nebraska we basically are about 12 days ahead of schedule. So this crop is maturing much quicker than normal. Now the good news is we've seen some cooler temperatures move in, and that's in association with the trough that just moved through over the last 24 hours, and that is going to start to move that cold air and there's precipitation toward the Great Lakes. We see some residual energy left over in eastern Nebraska, but most of that should be dissipated by this afternoon. And as we go into tomorrow, we'll see that the main run of activity over the Great Lakes with a nice northwest flow, so that's going to bring in some cooler temperatures. Western Nebraska will start to get into some of the warmer temperatures building into the region, and everybody should share into that warmth as we go into Monday with high pressure building into the region. It doesn't look to be as extreme. It looks like we're going to see temperatures that are going to be primarily in the 80s with a few isolated 90s, but I'll draw your attention to the southwest, that orange showing moisture starting to move up into our region as we get into Tuesday. We'll start to see that moisture funneling into the central plains over Nebraska, and now we have a trough that's trying to work its way in from the northwest. So we should see some scattered thunderstorm activity break out Tuesday into Wednesday. And as we get into Wednesday with this trough coming closer, we will probably see a period of dryness before we see another piece of energy moving down the region as we go into Thursday. Here comes that piece of energy generating more thunderstorm activity potential across the northern plains and Wyoming and Montana. Some of that may move into the western half of the state. And as we go into Friday, once again, another trough pushes in with much more reinforcing cool air, and we cool down. Additionally, as we look out from next Thursday through the following Tuesday, that cold air remains in place. That takes us pretty close to the end of the month. And in terms of precipitation, with that front, we see a lot of precipitation generated by the models.